If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the Escape Pod. I'm Julie.
I'm Charity. We're here.
We're here on a random morning. We don't usually do this.
No, we're
on
just
Friday mornings.
We're getting ahead of things finally.
We're getting ahead of things.
We're attempting
It feels
to.
a little good. Yeah, it feels better. Yeah, attempting is the right word.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a date on my calendar with no appointments except a massage. And I'm like, oh,
that's a dream.
I just wrote two articles for LinkedIn.
Oh, nice.
I haven't had time to write a fresh article in a long time.
I also had nothing on my calendar, but it turns out I was supposed to have something on my calendar. Thankfully, I was prepared. It was fine, but it was a little bit of a surprise. Just when you talk about meeting with somebody or doing a tour, and you had that conversation a month ago, and it was weather dependent, like let's see what the weather does in February in Rapid City, South Dakota.
I think it's a pretty safe bet we're not going to be doing a tour.
Right. And so usually I will hold the space anyway, and for whatever reason, probably because I had 50 other things on my mind when we had the conversation, I didn't just put it on my calendar. But it was fine. And it actually, not to pat myself on the back, but maybe the impromptu tour is the way to go, because I felt like it was one of the better ones I've given. It was like 1 hour, cut and dry. They really, felt like they had a better understanding, which we always say. So we're on the One Heart campus here in Rapid City, and Charity and I have often said, nobody leaves here less impressed than when they came.
I can think of one person, maybe a city council person.
They're lying. They are impressed. They just don't want to admit it. But having said that, even this morning she said, one of the ladies on the tour said, I thought I knew. And she did know a lot about what we do, but she said, I thought I knew, and it's even more than I thought. And I said, that's what we find. Yeah. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. Yeah. So what are you escaping from today?
I have several things.
Okay. Give me the list.
Without going into all the graphic,
nitty-gritty,
gory details, perimenopause sucks.
I've heard that.
It just sucks. So I'm at an OBGYN visit earlier, I don't know, this week, last week, sometime. You were here talking. I have no idea about time. I know today's Friday, but I don't know where. Anyway, it's a whole thing.
No judgment. I experience that now.
She starts on her sheet writing down like menopause. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And she's like, oh. And I said, look, I just wrote this date here. This is still like happening. Mm-hmm. So anyway, 3 weeks late.
Oh,
I have one while I'm dealing with all the mother-in-law stuff. I'm like, oh, I thought I was done. Like, nope, not so much. And then just finished. And it's like, oh, just kidding. Let's do this again.
Oh, wow.
So that sucks. Also, I'm really tired of big chunks of dirty snow in my garage.
Yeah.
I just hate it. I cannot wait for February and snow to be over. Just that, it drives me crazy.
I bet.
I mean, you know how organized and visual I am, so that just really gets under my skin. And then I have an escaping update on a guest.
Okay.
I don't think we ended up airing her episode. We did record one, but I don't think we
probably did not.
Okay. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I believe so.
So I got an update from one of the judges yesterday. It's as probably expected, but hopeful. So here's the story. So this was a guest on campus. She was on campus for about a year. Mm-hmm. We all adored her.
Very much so.
She had an amazing story. And then we did, like I said, we recorded an episode with her. It was so powerful. And it was shortly after that she went off the rails. And so we just didn't have the heart to put that out there in case she ran across it and throw it in her face, because I mean, she was really upset about falling off the wagon. And basically what it was is she had a history of severe alcoholism. to the point where major DUIs were involved.
Correct.
Had a choice, go to prison or go to DUI court. While she was going through that process, her brother got killed by a drunk driver.
Correct.
And that really made her think like, oh my God, like I could have done that to someone else's family.
Right. She didn't. She
She
didn't ever
didn't,
hurt
no.
somebody else, but she could have.
But
and she recognized
She
that.
recognized it. It was really hard and powerful. And hearing her talk about that was, I mean, just being in that space was really hard. So she graduated to DUI court. We were all there to celebrate. And within
It was not
a month,
very long.
weeks,
Yeah.
less than a month, she just wants to see, now that she's off paper, can she handle a shot of Fireball?
Right.
The answer was no.
Right.
Well, we didn't know that part at the time. All we knew is she couldn't drive, so she had a bike. She's getting around town on this e-bike. She missed curfew for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And we thought because she had a stalker in her past, oh my
we were
God,
worried.
he found her. We dropped what we were doing. We went and looked for her. We called any place that could possibly know anything about her. Have you seen her? Have you seen her? I tapped law enforcement. We had people combing the streets. And what it was is she was so ashamed that she had fallen off the wagon. She fell off the wagon.
Yeah.
So anyway, she ends up in Sioux Falls. She just got another felony level DUI. And however, because of her history, including with this program, they're giving her the option of going to DUI court again.
Oh, wow.
So that's the update I got. This judge also adored her and said, listen, I'm going to write those judges and let them know how great she is. And hopefully it's this time that makes it stick for her.
Yeah.
And lesson learned. So anyway, it was like both sad and happy. Like
Yeah.
she'll be in a safe place instead of going through this cycle of self-abuse again that
Yeah.
she had already endured that had just destroyed her life. And so, and she was a writer. Like she really wrote some. Anyway, we are all rooting for you. You know who you are if you're listening to this. So
Yeah, I think her case and a couple of others that we've had come through here that I've just known personally, it has really just impacted me so much to realize the depths of addiction. And I never appreciated, and I say appreciated in the way of understanding.
okay, yeah,
Fully understood how hard it is when you have lived that life for a long time.
it's like being possessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not what
Yep.
you want
No.
consciously,
Correct.
but it is taking over everything, and
And
it's really
like
hard.
you said,
and it takes 6 years before that is not a thing. So, and we haven't been open for 6 years, so nobody's stayed here for 6 years. We're not designed
Right.
to keep someone for 6 years.
right.
But
But I think that idea, that recognition that somebody says, well, I'm going to see if I could have just one drink,
yeah,
even one shot, one sip of something. A true addict, no, you cannot.
no, you cannot. The answer is no. Ever,
And-
never, never, ever.
Fortunately, I haven't felt those, I haven't had those behavior issues, but my heart does break for those
yeah.
people because I just can't imagine.
No.
And I think the constant reminder that has to be given, and I know our care coordinators do this, is listen, you've done hard things. You've done this before. You have, she had a year, I think, under her belt.
She did.
So you've done it.
She was ready to graduate college. She had all of these things.
Everything
and
was
then
going
just,
right. Yeah.
boom, one shot.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
1
her
ounce of
shame
alcohol.
really was self-inflicted because we were
No, we would
We
have
were
taken her
happy
back
to
and
have
said,
her
okay, you
back.
backslid. We will wrap around and support
Yeah.
you. It's a lapse, not a relapse.
yeah.
It turned into a relapse because she was
Kept
so
going.
ashamed she didn't want to come back and face us.
Yeah.
And we never would have treated her that way.
Well, I'm glad she's still around and that she might have some options. So, yeah, it is a story of hope, too, and I appreciate you sharing it. I know that I am fighting off a bug. I can feel it.
Uh-oh.
So I won't breathe on you.
Don't
it's
breathe
not
on
bad.
me, please.
No, one of my kiddos had basically a sinus infection.
Like
and
hiding now.
I know, I'm
behind
sorry.
my mic.
Had a sinus infection, and that's what I feel like. When I wake up in the morning,
Well, you
I
had
have
that terrible headache yesterday.
And I had a terrible headache yesterday.
Yeah.
But that's gone. So I think that was more like sleep
That's
related.
those little critters getting in your sinuses going, oh, party.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, I'll do all the talking. You just hold your breath.
Right. I will lean back when you're talking,
Okay.
I promise.
Awesome.
So what's our topic today?
Okay, we are going to talk about you can hear, like, it's incredible. And there's not even a word. I can't find a word because all these stories are incredible. This one is truly unbelievable. And it's about this young woman's will to survive an incident we've covered some pretty horrific murders, rapes, different assaults.
Mm-hmm.
I have never heard anything like this before. And this happened in 1994. I didn't hear about it until, within the last week. And then I just became obsessed. It's like, surely nobody could survive what I'm hearing about.
Mm-hmm.
Someone can, and she did. And I'm going to tell you her story.
Okay.
So trigger warning, all of them.
Okay.
All the trigger warnings.
Be advised, people. Be advised.
Blood, gore, disembowelment, rape, sexual assault, sociopathy, narcissism, like any of those things, just please run the other way. You ready? Okay. Alison.
Well, do you want an actual answer to that?
It's going to knock your socks off. I mean, well, and then anyway, I'll get to it.
Okay.
I'll get to it. Okay. So South Africa, Port Elizabeth in specific, December of 1994. So it's summertime there. Our Decembers are cold. Their Decembers are lovely. So Alison was 27 years old. And I will tell you, there are several sources for this. I really leaned on a documentary that was produced, and she's in it.
Okay.
Where she's telling her own story. And then there's also some reenactment. So it was just so much more profound hearing it from the survivor, which you don't always get to hear. So it was really beautifully done and so moving. I mean, I had a box of Kleenex and a lot of snot going while I was watching this documentary, and it is powerful. So in her own words, she kind of talks about being a little girl and never really having any like hopes and dreams and aspirations in life. Like, some kids, I want to be this when I grow up. I want to do that when I grow up. She just whatever. So she gets through school, just really whatever. School was just kind of meh. Decides to go to secretarial school to at least have some skills to fall back on until she could figure out, like, what do I want to do with my life, right? So she's 27, spent some time abroad before returning back home, so still kind of in that young adult phase of, like, I'm just going to have some fun. So this particular day, she'd had a lovely day at the beach with some friends and then just wanted to keep the fun going. So they went to her house that evening, pizza, games, just having a good time. About 1 o'clock in the morning, she gives a friend of hers a ride home. And then as she's coming back to her place, like her normal parking spot outside of her, I don't know if it was an apartment or a townhome or a house, I'm not sure, but it was taken. So she kind of had to park like a ways away, and it's really dark. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. As she parks, she's got some laundry and other things in her passenger seat. So she reaches over to grab that. And all of a sudden, she feels the car door open. Before she can even react to that, there's a knife at her throat.
Ooh.
And then there's a voice, move over or I'll kill you. So she moves over into the passenger seat. And this guy tells her he just needs to borrow her car for an hour. His name's Clinton. He just needs to collect on some money that somebody owed him. That was the story. And in that moment, she's like, okay, made a conscious choice to believe him. Just an hour. It's just an hour. He was asking her questions like if she had a boyfriend, which for whatever reason kind of put her at ease, like false sense of security kind of a thing. Okay. And then he gets to a certain place. He pulls over and there's a guy standing on the curb, and this guy gets in the car. Another guy gets in the car. And that's when she knew, game over. This is not going to go well for me. So they drove her outside of any civilized area in the dark and parked in an alcove, so sandy area where people would party. So there's a lot of like glass and debris and stuff in the sand. And they get out of the car. He says, "Are you going to fight?" And she says, "No." And that was when he forced her to perform oral sex on him and he on her, and then he raped her. And she said as it was happening, this broke my heart. She said her body was responding to the act of.
Sure.
And she said she just felt like it was the ultimate betrayal of herself, even though it was a survival mechanism. And that's like when we talk about the amygdala and how you are hardwired to respond a certain way in these types of situations for survival, and you cannot override that. She knows now that's what was happening.
Yeah.
But to hear her talk about it, and I get it. I mean, I've been in those situations where, that guy in D.C. that grabbed me in the hallway of a hotel, I met him 24 hours earlier. He knows I'm married, grabs me and kisses me. Like, I wanted to pummel that asshole.
Right.
And I couldn't. I froze, and it's so infuriating. Yeah. So while I cannot fathom what she went through, I generally understand that feeling betrayed by yourself. Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, it's so cold in the studio right now. My nose is running. So I am not sick. So after he did this horrible stuff, he was talking to his buddy. And his buddy, Tien's, called him Franz. So that's how she knew that the name Clinton was BS. Ugh. So his name was Franz.
I don't know why that surprises me. Like,
Franz,
they lied about their name.
And Tien.
Of course they did.
And so our Franz says to Tien's, "Do you want to have sex with this lovely lady?" And he said, "No, I want to F the bitch."
Oh.
And he was very brutal. He launched at her immediately putting his hands around her throat, and it was a brutal attack. She remembers it was so brutal, like she remembers her bowels evacuating, and he was doing everything he could to render her unconscious.
Oh, gosh.
It was very horrible. And then...
although I would want to be unconscious.
Absolutely.
But
she was not. Through any of what I'm going to talk about, she was not.
Ugh.
So they're done with her now. They rape her several times, and Franz stabs her in the abdomen and pubic area.
Ew.
In excess of 37 times. And he said this, like deliberately trying to destroy her reproductive organs. And it was not only brutal in the fact that it was over 37 times. Some reports said 40, but it
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Once is enough.
Too many times. But those stabs were delivered with like such hatred and venom. Like she could see the arm swinging back and forth and back and forth. And, the moonlight is illuminating this to the point where she said like he kind of had a halo. And so she's aware, but she's not feeling any pain. She can just hear the sounds of this wet
of her body
stuff getting mutilated.
Yes.
But it seemed so personal. Like it was, she's never met these men before in her life, but there was just so much vitriol and just cruelty. So they thought they'd done the job and started to leave her. But her leg twitched. I mean, these dumbasses don't realize that bodies, even after death, sometimes there's electrical impulses and things move. So her leg twitched. And then Tien's took the knife and began slashing at her throat. So she was, again, aware of him doing this, conscious. She can hear the cutting sounds, back and forth, back and forth. He slashed at her throat 17 times. Okay.
Again, before I said once is enough, I meant once is too many.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know what you meant.
So, what is wrong with people? So many things.
Just wait.
Go on.
I'm going to show you a picture at the end of this.
I don't think I want to see a picture.
Bastards. They look like, I couldn't find if it were true or not, but I just look at them and I feel like they're like that whole white supremacist Aryan Brotherhood kind of people.
Oh, interesting.
They just have that look about them.
Okay.
So...
Whether they were
professional
or not
opinion.
isn't.
Yeah, I have no idea. They might as well have been because they're just pieces of shit.
Well, they're
worse.
hateful.
The most horrible. Okay. So they finally stop assaulting her, and she hears one of them say, "You think she's dead?" The other one says, "Nobody can survive that." So they leave her for dead. she's not only not dead, she's still conscious after all of this deliberate mutilation. So she remembers hearing a strange sound after they leave, and then finally realizes that it was her trying to breathe. Her trachea had been completely severed. Completely severed. And then she says that's when she literally left her body, and she could, then she didn't hear those sounds anymore. She was kind of at peace. She could see her naked body on this dirty, dirty freaking beach, glass littered, all this stuff. And kind of like, okay, I am here. I can keep going. And then she's looking at her body and she's like, screw that. I want a chance to live. I am going to make sure these guys don't do this to somebody else. So she wills herself back into her body, starts to hear that terrible, raspy, wet noise again. And so her first thought before she did anything else, while she's like so incapacitated on this beach, is she takes her finger and she writes out their names.
Nice.
In case she doesn't survive. And then the next thing she writes is, I love Mom.
Oh.
So heartbreaking. And then she feels, so she's
so smart, though. I don't know if I would.
She's brilliant.
Yeah.
Just I'm telling you, I don't know. I've never had these feelings before of being so
like connected to a victim.
I don't know. And especially me being empathic, I don't know. She's just next level. That's all I can say. So she feels something wet outside of her legs. And she realizes
a number of things. Good
as
gracious.
she feels what's happening, it was her intestines.
Oh my gosh.
She had been completely disemboweled.
That's nuts.
So she does see her shirt on the beach that they had taken off of her. She grabs the shirt, she scoops up, and she's not moving much at this point, but she reaches for it. She grabs the shirt, she scoops up her intestines to the shirt and holds them to her.
Wow.
And then she starts like one-armed, two-kneed, picking her way, crawling across the beach because she had seen some like headlights presumably in the distance.
Oh.
And so she's just going in that direction. But there's, like I said, a lot of glass, a lot of debris.
Yeah.
So she knows she has to get to her feet because she's not getting very far very fast. And she knows she's losing a lot of blood.
Yeah.
She probably doesn't have a lot of time. So she stands up, and then that's when she blacks out. But she's not unconscious. She can't see, but she's still conscious.
That's weird.
Human body is freaking just amazingly mysterious. So she reaches out her hand to steady her head because, like, when you get dizzy and you kind of swoon back, her head went back way farther than it should.
I can't. Oh my gosh.
So she reaches up to figure out what's going on.
Well, I mean,
her hand went, the wound was so big that her hand went into her throat.
Thank God for adrenaline.
She was this close to being decapitated. That's how violent and over the top these men were. I mean, it's crazy. So now she's got her shirt bundling her intestines. Her other hand is holding her head forward.
That's
so that she
crazy.
can literally hold herself together. And she makes it to this highway. And that's when she collapses. She's still conscious, though. But she's just like out of juice.
Yeah, sure.
So she hears a car, and she was terrified that it was Franz and Tien's coming back. It wasn't, thank God. But whoever it was, probably sees this brutally mutilated body. And I mean, some people are going to run.
I was going to say, I don't know if I were alone, especially, or just had like
right. I'm
small
not judging.
Child in the car.
I'm not judging. I don't know if it was a single.
I'd be terrified to stop.
Yeah. Is someone waiting?
I
Is
hope
this
I
a
would,
lure?
especially knowing the story. But when you're out,
It's
I mean,
dark where they're at. There's no street lights.
It's the middle of the night because she was
Nothing.
taken at like 1 a.m,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think that would be scary to come upon. I would hope I would be the person who helped, but just like everything else, like you don't really know how you'd react till you're in that moment.
Right. So that car kept going. Next car, though, probably contained the best Good Samaritan on the planet Earth. His name was Tien Eilerd, and he and his buddies were there on holiday. This was like a veterinary school student. And so he gently puts the thyroid gland back in her throat, and is like putting things back together. Her eyes, because of the level of strangulation she'd endured, every blood vessel in her eyes was like, her eyes just looked like they were blood red. And he kept telling her, like, your eyes are so beautiful. Let me see them. Keep them open. Like, he was doing everything he could to keep her awake. He would not leave her. And so they get to the hospital. And that event actually changed his path in life. He ended up becoming a doctor, not a veterinarian, because of that event. And he delivered one of her babies later in life. So I'll get to that. Okay. So
thank you for the happy teaser, by the way.
There's some happy teasers. All right. So now she's in the hospital under the care of Dr. David Komen, and he still struggles to talk about it because they see brutal car accidents and freak mechanical accidents and and had just never seen that level of trauma on a human body before, and have someone survive that level of cruelty. Like, it just,
that's what I was going to say. I think for most
not
people
accidental
in those professions.
And so he sees this naked, mutilated woman, and this was 1994, so not many people had cell phones.
No.
But one of his friends happened to have the latest and greatest and was able to call for help. But they're still in the middle of nowhere, so it still took 40 minutes for paramedics to get there. But he covers her with a shirt, so now he's on the road, nude from the waist up, laying down with her, holding her hand. He recognized, because of his medical training, her thyroid gland hanging outside of her body.
And see those things, yes, they're often accidental, or the person doesn't make it. And so the connection to them as a human is a little bit disconnected, right? Like, it's not probably quite the same.
Have to.
You'd have to. Oh my gosh. Thank God. And I'm sure your husband could say this too, but I'm really lucky that my husband can compartmentalize the things he sees versus, some people don't do that. And as first responders, that's when you often have people with a lot of problems, is because they take it home. It kind of becomes part of their body and their daily thoughts. And I joke about how unemotional he is, but
that's what's saving him.
That's largely what allows him to do the job and come home and still be a good husband, a good dad, all those things. Yeah, for sure.
I don't even know at this stage how many dead bodies my husband has seen.
Right.
Like, I don't think he's doing a count, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Someone asked me a question the other day. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I don't know why we were talking about this, but one of my girlfriends asks me, we were just talking about the act of death for some reason, and how, bodies their bowels will evacuate.
Sure.
And she's like, is it an always thing? And I said, I don't think it's an always thing.
No, I don't think so either.
And then she's like, you need to ask your husband. I'm like, well, he's seen enough. Like, he would probably know if it's an always or just a sometimes or whatever. Anyway, don't ask me why we got on that topic. But anyway.
Sidebar.
Side note, yeah. It was just beyond like what he was seeing. So he finds the doctor necessary to put Alison back together, like her abdomen and all that stuff, save her life. The lacerations on her neck were from ear to ear. Her trachea and neck muscles were completely severed. She had been, like I said, completely disemboweled. And not only that, she was on a dirty, dirty beach.
Right.
Like, she was contaminated with sand and charcoal and like all kinds of things.
Yeah. I was even thinking, like, God bless the Good Samaritan. But when you talked about how he was putting things back in, and I'm like, but he's probably like,
he's not sterilized.
Right. They're not in an ER, And so even that, I was immediately thinking like infection.
I know, but I would be thinking like, it probably can't live outside. Like, you've got to get it back in the water, right?
No, I
like,
think it's amazing. Yeah. But at the same time, just the
there's
circumstances they're in would have been horrible.
Yeah. So they knew that they had to like really take great care so that she didn't become infected.
Yeah.
But they also said the damage was so extensive that she was probably never going to be able to have children.
Sure.
I've already kind of spilled on that. She's had two
Nice.
little boys just like you.
That's awesome.
All right. So first they had to clean out her wounds. And as like there, they actually had to request her consent for the surgery. And so she was actually able to write her name and the name and phone number of her mom on this consent sheet.
That's amazing.
It's like when she decided to go back into her body and survive to get these motherfuckers, like she was all in. She was not going to let any barriers like having her head nearly cut off get in the way of that.
That's nuts.
She was all in. So Dr. Angelov is the guy who like put all her stuff together, and he like literally had to pass her intestines through his fingers, like getting every single, sometimes things had to be scrubbed. Like
Sure.
it was just really invasive.
Sure.
But he got everything clean. He got her all put back together. And here's what's interesting. The blood, they were showing like the blood vessels and the nerves in the face and neck that if they had been severed would have been absolutely game over.
Right.
Miraculously, none of those were damaged. And it reminds me of like, well, even though like the stab wounds to the chest and abdomen, nothing penetrated her lungs.
It's crazy.
And that just, reminds me a lot of my husband, like with the way that bullet ripped through from his head all the way through his abdomen, the opposite side, and hit nothing important.
He was meant to be
it's
here.
a miracle, right?
Yep.
She is a freaking miracle. And all the while, the doctors are working to save her life and put her back together. There's 2 police officers waiting in the lobby for her to get out of surgery. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they know she didn't do this to herself. We have a problem. We have to figure out who the hell these guys are. So, spoiler alert, the guys had pretty extensive criminal histories already.
Shocking.
This wasn't their first rodeo, right? So after surgery, police bring her a folder with photos of these like commonly known perpetrators, and immediately one page she was able to identify fronts, one page she was able to identify TNs. And so the police went to go round up these shitbags. And then by then, the prosecution believed that to put these guys away for good because they had histories of this. One of them had raped very violently 2 women. One was pregnant. I mean, you should not ever be let out of jail for that. If the police, if like the criminal justice system knows this, why are they out? Yeah. I know this is South Africa. Things are different, and I'll get to some of those differences later. But you don't rehabilitate that.
No,
you just don't. Find me proof that can be rehabilitated.
Yeah,
I don't believe it exists. But anyway, the prosecution believed that it was going to be necessary for Alison to verbalize the name of the 2 people. So she's already written them in the sand. She's already identified them, but they want her to say it. And I don't know. I think it's because at the time in South Africa, they had a law where, I kid you not, you had to have a photo taken with you, with your hand on the shoulder of the person you're accusing.
Ew.
Yep. And she clearly couldn't do that in this state. So I think this is me just putting
They're
pieces
just trying
together
to make sure they have as much evidence as possible.
Yes. So the investigators who are bringing all this evidence to the prosecuting office says, to the doctor, hey, we really think we need this. And I mean, she's living off of tubes. They've just put her all back together. She has to heal. And the doctor's like, are you effing kidding me? We can't remove these tubes. And they're pretty insistent. And so he just kind of gave up and went and talked to Alison and said, here's what they want. What do you think? She said, let's do it. Well, she wrote down, let's do it. So, I mean, just unwavering spirit, this woman. Yeah. And so they did it. She named the bastards, and the prosecution got to work on their side of things. So some of the friends went to go see her at work, or from work went to go see her. And this also reminds me of my husband because they're sobbing over her condition. I mean, her eyes are still just blood red. She's mutilated, lying there. And she just told them not to cry. She's okay. She didn't even break a nail, she says. Of course she had. But it just shows like that that spirit and that determination. And my husband was very much that way too, like making people laugh.
Yeah.
Because they were struggling more with what he had endured than he was, right? So I just thought,
I feel like a lot of people will describe that.
yeah.
That it's hard, that it's harder to see your family and friends than it is necessarily to be the person who really needs the help, you know?
Yeah. So police shared with Alison that these guys had, I think it was a total of 3 other women, done these same things too. And so when they had abducted Alison, they had already made up their minds that they had to kill the person because the last ones had gone to police, even though they warned them, you go to police, we're going to come back, we're going to get you, we're going to kill your families, we're going to do all this stuff. And those women all reported it. So they knew they had to kill Alison. So now Detective Melvin Humple is on the scene. It's really just precious when she talks about him. She calls him my cop. It's just so sweet. And when he went to arrest them for attempted murder, Franz was like, what? Like he was so shocked.
Because he thought she was dead.
Absolutely. And I mean, he was so shocked that he just gave up immediately. I mean, this is like, when you see this guy, and I describe some of the things that are coming up in the story of his behaviors, this is how caught off guard he was. He couldn't even fake it. He gave up immediately. He had a ring on his finger. He gave that over and said it was one of Alison's. Sure enough, her blood was still on it.
Oh my.
And Detective Humple did everything he could to make sure the prosecution had everything they needed to convict these guys. And, and it's like when you've been victimized so severely and then you still have to keep giving more of your pubic hair and different things for evidence purposes to make sure she did it. But my God, she just said it was so demoralizing, like to have to keep dropping my pants over and over and, here, take more of me.
I would think now, like this was 94, so maybe now, I don't know. I'd like to think that you get as much evidence kind of right away. You're not asking for it over and over.
I hope so. I didn't find anything to speak to that. But what I did find is that whole putting your hand on the attacker's shoulders bullshit. Detective Humple, he really wanted to protect her from further re-victimization. And so he's the one who said, you can't make her go through this. Let's use one-way glass. So this was the very first case that one-way glass was used. And even that was overburdening and terrifying for her to be. They're just on the other side of this flimsy glass barrier. Anyway, so they got the job done. She identified him right away in the lineup. And now, one-way glass is the norm. So this was kind of a big deal back then. So Franz Tienz are in jail. And then when Franz was in jail, he started acting as if he were possessed by a demon. And I
would argue he is, but not be held accountable.
He knew what he was doing. He was totally in his twisted effing mind.
Horrible.
Anyway, so he tried that ploy, didn't work. And it's just interesting because this event, I mean, it, didn't destroy Alison's spirit, but definitely, harmed her body significantly. But Franz's father, within 2 years of what his son did, he died by suicide.
Oh.
Detective Humple talks about he's not a hunter. He detests killing. But every time he would have to take these shitbags to court, he would tell them, I'm not gonna handcuff you. Please run.
Ooh.
Because he knew he could have shot him.
Oh my.
What they did to Alison, there was no death penalty in South Africa. At this time, it had been deemed unconstitutional years prior. But he was like, please give me a reason. Please give me a reason.
Wow.
And even the judge, had the death penalty been on the table, would have heavily considered it. Okay. But it wasn't. And so he's like, all he could do was place a note with their sentencing that said they were never to be let out of prison.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, all of this stuff goes on, and the court cases I'm not going to dig a lot into, but they both pled guilty.
Sure.
8 counts of attempted murder, rape, kidnapping, all the stuff, received life in prison. And she talks about just how long, because now her healing journey has to begin. You know, they're locked up. She's safe from them for the time being, but she still needs help caring for her wounds. I mean, it was a long time before she could have like an actual bath and not a sponge bath. And it took a long time for her to be able to even like look at her body and how now it's changed and all that stuff. And it was just really hard. And of course, she became depressed. She kind of stopped caring about whether she went to work or not, or took care of herself or not. And then this was getting really problematic. And then she, for whatever reason, like remembers that out-of-body experience and then realized like this depression and the lack of caring was giving power, like giving Franz and Tien's power over her. And so she, like, once again, it was just like that out-of-body experience where she chose to go back in and get them held accountable. She's like, I'm going to choose life.
Yeah.
And so that was it. She embraced it. And then from there, somebody heard of a story, asked her to come speak to a group about her ordeal, and she was terrified. Like, not many people like speaking in front of groups, yours truly included. But it made her feel better.
Oh.
And, you know, and I think about that, like when we were talking again with my husband, how he never had PTSD himself. And it's because he was out in the community constantly telling this story over and over again. And so it really reminded me of that too. And she's like, oh my God, I tell this story and it's horrific, but I feel better.
Yeah.
So she kept doing it. And now she's published a book and now this documentary. She speaks professionally and gives hope to victims and all this kind of, like, it's really amazing. So imagine she's got her life together. She's got 2 children now. She does this professionally and spreads this message of resilience. And I'll get to some of my favorite quotes from her in a minute. But imagine her, what's that word when you have been so, I almost had it, like let down.
Disappointment?
Well, it's disappointment, but it's like when betrayal. Okay.
Oh.
So 28 years later, so just recently, July of 2023, she learns through the media that her attackers were granted parole.
Oh my gosh.
Without even consulting her. Placed under supervision, whatever that means,
ridiculous.
Despite the judge's insistence on a life sentence, right? No one should have to go through what she went through and even have this as a possibility. This is going to get me fired up because just wait. So she reaches out to authorities to implore them not to let these guys out because in that time, she'd been contacted by a mom in the United States whose daughter was engaged to Franz in prison.
Because she's an idiot.
She's something. And so she reaches out to Alison for help because she's terrified that if this guy is let out, now that he's up for parole, this is going to happen to her daughter. Something's going to happen. And so Alison's like, okay, I don't really want to insert myself in this, but she's terrified too. So she reaches out to authorities, please keep me anonymous, but you need to understand this because of this young girl and her mom's worried about her and whatever. And I don't know her age, but it sounded younger than she needed to be. The freaking authorities, this new watch, definitely not the original crew who really wanted to protect and wrap around Alison, they printed it off and showed Franz the email. Completely outed Alison. And so they made enough noise that soon that parole was reversed.
Okay.
These guys were both reincarcerated when the Minister of Correctional Services said, no, these guys cannot be let out. So they reeled them back in, put them both back in prison. And if you already hated these guys for what they've done, Franz figures out that this documentary is being produced.
Okay.
He reaches out to filmmakers. How should he even have access to do so?
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, I'll come on film. But in exchange for his incredibly valuable time, he leveled several demands. One, was first a letter of forgiveness to be signed by Alison.
No.
And also he was demanding profits from her book sales and speaking engagements retroactivated. Because this shitbag thinks he should have credit for all of her success in life. Of course, they denied his request. You don't give a narcissist a platform, right? But here's the thing that really drives me crazy. When I think about the girl he was engaged to, and I think about Alison having an online platform where her story's being told and they can see updates and pictures and PR things, these guys have free access to the internet. Mm-hmm. How is that okay?
Yeah.
How is that okay?
Yeah, prisoners have, I can't speak for South Africa, although it's clear. I feel like they do have a lot of rights. Like it's not.
I'm sorry, when you have victimized somebody, you should not be able to keep tabs on your victims over the internet or create or prey upon anybody else. It's just not okay. It's not okay. You want to create this perpetrate this most vile act against another human being, you lose those rights. I'm sorry. Yeah. You can go rot in a prison cell with no access to social media.
We're referring to them as rights, but they're privileges. They are not rights. Like human rights mean we're not going to.
You can breathe.
We're not going to starve you.
Not going to starve you, but you should not have
as
access to the internet. No.
Other things,
Nope. Not at all. And that really freaked me out. It just made me feel like when she got that news that they were being paroled, like, oh my God, the world just got incredibly smaller, I imagine. Just, again, based on my stalking experience, never elevated to this level. But just being able to kind of extrapolate that feeling, those feelings that I've had out, it's terrifying. Or being cyberstalked.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the guy that I've told you about in D.C. was text stalking me, and that was terrifying. I don't even know if I've told you that story. Mm-hmm. But it's like it's in my phone and there he is again, and it's scary.
Yeah.
And now knowing that they can track her all over the internet from the safety of their jail cells is not okay. It just is not okay. So anyway, let me show you the shitbags. You'll see what I mean.
Ew.
You see it?
Mm-hmm.
Don't they look like the cockiest of...
Are they related? They kind of look alike. But one has hair, one doesn't. But they have very similar features.
They do.
It's kind of creepy.
This is France. That's Tien's. This is Tien Eilerd, the guy who stayed with her on the highway. Aww. Now a medical doctor. And this is her now. Well, not now. This is before some recent things that happened to her. This was her after she healed and all of that stuff. And you'll see in photos she's a beautiful woman.
Beautiful, yeah.
She'll wear
higher necked.
No.
Oh no,
clothing, but higher neck jewelry, more choker kinds of things. Because that scar, it's almost entirely around her neck, and I don't remember if it was on the documentary or if it was in one of the newsreels I watched, but she talked about in court with those two there, the sentencing and stuff. She just, it was like another out-of-body experience. She knew she had a job to do. She didn't fall apart. She just did it and basically said something like, and this is not a direct quote, but I'm totally paraphrasing, I always thought my neck was one of my best features, and now look at it.
Oh.
But these guys don't care about that kind of thing. You're not going to make an impact with
anything.
Them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, they cared about something that their hand could have solved, but no, they had to mutilate a human body. So
you make a valid point.
Yeah. So no love law. I'm sorry. I just think.
So they are in prison.
They are in prison once again.
And she's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think I would love to meet this woman.
Aww.
Seriously.
Yeah.
How do you, we where did my quotes go? I had some really, I probably just, because me, I can't stick to a script.
I am aware of this.
You are aware of this. Let me see if I can find it because, Okay. Well, basically, she talked in her presentations that she does about like we can't always control the things that happen to us, but we can control how we respond to those things, which very much, I think that's why it was just so much in alignment with what we teach our guests here at One Heart.
Right.
And, it's really what you make of it. It's our whole stay resilient and keep laughing. It's the whole thing. And this, while few of our guests have gone through the level of
Yeah, some of them have been through a lot of trauma.
A lot of trauma.
Yeah, and sometimes at very
Absolutely.
young ages. I mean,
But man, this one just blew me away. So
well,
anyway, that's my new hero, Alison Botha.
as she should be a hero. That is amazing. And the people who did help her, because they're pretty incredible too. So thank you for highlighting that
I know that was
story.
hard,
And
but
it is hard, but
it's inspirational at
Yep.
the same time. It's not like, and then she died. Like it's
well, and I think too, just recognizing that we always think, oh, if that happened to me, I could never do that. The truth is, you might be surprised at what you're capable of in those situations. Just like I say, well, I hope I do that. But we are stronger than we realize in a lot of cases.
well, then adrenaline kicks in.
It's huge.
I mean, adrenaline is me taking on that armed, the brake checker guy on the highway 52 in Minnesota that time. Remember you telling me that?
yes.
Like, I don't care about your freaking gun.
Yeah.
I care that you're putting my infant in danger.
Right.
So like, that was just, I was possessed by mothering instincts, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, it is just remarkable. And she didn't live a life even now without like pain and residual issues from all of these injuries. It's just part of daily life, but she just is so positive and embraces life, and she's here, and now she knows like there is peace on the other side.
That's
when
kind
it's
of
time,
incredible,
which
too.
is really amazing. And she'd rather be here, with her children. And
Yeah.
it's just, again, she's at the top of my list.
That's very cool.
I don't fangirl about many things, but she got me.
It's good. It's
Yeah.
good to have those inspiring
She got
stories
me.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, folks, time to talk about escapism co-host style. Where would you like to escape to?
I have a massage in a few hours that I'm very excited about.
Am I buzzing like crazy? Is it me or you?
Well, between your phone and my stomach, I don't know. It's like,
my phone's going nuts.
can the mic pick up my stomach rumblings? 'Cause
I have not heard your
you
stomach
haven't heard it?
rumbling.
Okay,
no.
maybe it's just vibrations.
Did I say stomach rumbling?
rumblings?
3-day weekend for us here, and that's where I'm escaping to, just an extra day off, which is nice. I toured a group this morning who they have to work on Monday, and they were like,
a lot of people do. Yeah.
They almost didn't even realize it was a holiday.
Yeah.
And I said, I felt kind of bad. I was like, I used to do a job where it wasn't a holiday. So it is
News
nice.
doesn't get holidays.
No, not very often. Nope. You do news on holidays, but there were only a few recognized where you did get paid more if you worked them. But you didn't necessarily get them off. So on that note, time to take a break, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you. Of course, if you like what you hear, please share it with others who might like it too. We are doing this as a little escape, but it does have a bigger purpose. We are trying to provide operational support for the nonprofit where we work, called One Heart, where our mission is empowering people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability.
And you can help us do that. You can help us spread and promote our podcast for our cause. You can do that in two different ways. One, just share it and have people listen to it, because the more
Totally
listeners
free.
helps us generate more ad revenue and becomes a win-win. The other way is to become a patron of the show. You can find out how to do that at escapepod.live. There's different tiers. I think it's $2, $5, or $10 a month. We're not totally up on all the bonus content, but there is bonus content. And, as time progresses, that'll definitely be more of a kind of membership exclusive type of thing.
Yep.
But $2 a month can help, spread the word. We also have activity on social media. I hear my team does this. I am not a big social media person, so I'm not going to
Your
give you any of
husband
my
had
handles.
a comment to one of my comments on social media.
He's always out there. It's just not my thing, and I think that's one thing I'm just never going to embrace.
It's okay.
So, but we do have them for the Escape Pod, and you can link out to our socials through escapepod.live. You can reach out to us if you have a story that you want to share at Just Because at escapepod.live, like a story about perimenopause or chunky, dirty snow or whatever. I don't care. Whatever you want to escape. Or you can share your escape story with us at escapeartist at escapepod.live, possibly to be read on a future episode.
We are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable, but how you grapple with it is optional. So, like Alison, stay resilient.
And keep laughing.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.